I found out my dad was sleeping with my girlfriend, so I exposed him at work. But my revenge uncovered a secret network of corruption, and now I'm being watched. I never expected betrayal to come from both the woman I loved and the man who raised me. I was 22, living at home to save money while working part-time and finishing school. My dad, always the charismatic type, had this way of making people feel comfortable around him. Too comfortable, as I'd soon learn. My girlfriend, Tessa, had been acting strange for weeks. She used to come over every chance she got, clinging to me like I was her oxygen. But lately, she was cold, distant. Whenever I asked what was wrong, she brushed it off, saying she was stressed about work or her mom. I wanted to believe her. I really did. One night, I came home early from a canceled class. I walked into the house quietly. It was late, and I didn't want to wake anyone. But I heard something. Not voices. Sounds. Groans. Laughter. The kind of noises that make your stomach twist. I followed them down the hallway. The door to the guest room was cracked open. I peeked inside. There they were. My father, my girlfriend, together, on the pull-out couch. She was on top of him, whispering something into his ear. He grabbed her waist like he owned her. They didn't see me. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, frozen. It felt like hours. My brain refused to accept what my eyes were witnessing. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I backed away quietly and left the house. I wandered the neighborhood for hours, numb. Betrayal wasn't a strong enough word. It was like my world had split in two and fallen apart in slow motion. The next morning, they acted normal. Tessa kissed me on the cheek when she left, like she hadn't just destroyed everything. My dad made pancakes, asking me about my classes. I stared at them both like they were aliens. I knew I couldn't let this slide, but I wasn't going to explode. I was going to plan. And I knew exactly how to hurt him, at his job. For the next few days, I pretended nothing was wrong. I smiled at breakfast. I kissed Tessa when she came over. I asked my dad about work like I cared. Inside, I was boiling. My thoughts ran wild with fantasies of revenge. Some cruel, some even darker. But I knew one thing for sure. I wanted him to feel humiliated, powerless. Just like I had felt standing in that doorway. My dad worked at a mid-sized construction firm. He wasn't the boss, but he was high up, senior project manager. Everyone liked him. He was the kind of guy who brought donuts on Fridays and always had a dad joke ready to kill a meeting's tension. But he also had a reputation for being a little too familiar with the interns. Flirty texts, late-night emails. Nothing concrete, just whispers, until now. I started digging. First, I hacked in his work laptop. I knew his passwords. He used the same ones for everything. Baseball stats and my mom's birthday. Pathetic. It took me 5 minutes to get into his email. What I found wasn't just evidence, it was ammunition. There were emails to a younger coworker named Alyssa. She couldn't have been more than 25. There were attachments, photos, some shirtless selfies he probably thought looked sexy. The worst part? He had emailed them from his work account. The man was reckless. But that wasn't all. There were invoices, personal expenses he had been disguising as business ones, dinners with Tessa, hotel rooms for work trips, gifts that had nothing to do with the company. I gathered everything. Screenshots, PDFs. I even downloaded one particularly nasty voicemail he left a junior engineer after a disagreement. He sounded drunk, aggressive. Then came phase 2. Tessa always left her phone unattended when she showered. One night, while she was at my house, I took it, just for a minute. I forwarded every message she had with my father to myself. Some of them were explicit, some were weirdly romantic. But the kicker? A voice note. My dad saying, "Don't worry, babe. He's too dumb to notice. I've got him wrapped around my finger." I sent that audio file to myself and renamed it Final Straw. Now I had everything I needed. Still, I waited. I wanted to strike when it would really hurt. So I started getting close to Alyssa, the young co-worker from his emails. I reached out on Instagram under a fake name, posed as a concerned friend from the office. I told her I had some files she needed to see, that she was being used. At first, she didn't respond. Then she did. We met for coffee. I handed her a USB drive and a prepaid burner phone. If this doesn't make you want to talk to HR, I don't know what will. She looked at me like I had handed her a nuclear weapon. And in a way, I had. But that wasn't the only bomb I was going to drop. I had something even more explosive in mind. The following Monday, I skipped class and waited outside my dad's office building in my car. My palms were sweating. My heart was pounding. I wasn't nervous. I was buzzing with anticipation. At 9 a.m. sharp, I sent the anonymous email. It was short and brutal. Subject line: your senior project manager is abusing company resources. Inside were the receipts, literally. Scan invoices, doctor budgets, email transcripts. The voice memo labeled "Final Straw" attached with no explanation. I knew corporate HR would scramble. 10 minutes later, I sent another email to the entire department mailing list from a fake account. If you're wondering where your boss has been disappearing to after lunch, check these out. Attached were the screenshots of the messages between my dad and Tessa, including a cropped photo of him shirtless in a hotel room bed with wine glasses in the background. By 10 a.m., chaos had erupted. I watched employees rush outside to make phone calls, some pointing at their phones, others whispering and laughing. One guy threw up a high five to another. Alyssa, sweet, naive Alyssa, stormed out the front door with her purse slung over her shoulder like a weapon, headed straight for HR, I assumed. At 10:23 a.m., my dad came out. His face was ghost white. He was sweating through his shirt. He stood on the curb, looking lost, clutching his phone like it might explode. He called someone, then again, and again. Nobody picked up. I turned my burner phone on and sent him a final message from an unknown number. You humiliated me. Now it's your turn. He froze. I saw it from the car. He stared at his screen like it had just cursed his soul. Then, slowly, he looked around. I ducked before he could spot me, but I wasn't done yet. That evening, I confronted Tessa. I invited her over like everything was normal. We ordered Chinese. She brought a bottle of wine. She kissed me like she hadn't betrayed me with my own blood. And I kissed her back. Just once. Then I stood up, walked over to my laptop, opened the folder labeled Whore Files, and let the images play on screen. She choked on her wine. What is this? You tell me, Tessa. You were there. She stared at the screen, then at me, then back again. You went through my phone? She asked, suddenly offended, as if that was the crime here. I just laughed. No, I went through his laptop, and your texts, and your lies. She started to cry, pleading that it was a mistake, that she was lonely, that it didn't mean anything. You were screwing my father, Tessa. It wasn't serious. He just offered things you couldn't. Boom. There it was. I told her to get out. I told her I'd sent copies of everything to my mom. And I had. Every last piece of filth. Labeled and dated. Tessa ran out in tears. But I didn't feel satisfied. Because there was still one person left in this story who hadn't felt the consequences yet. My mom. I didn't hear from my dad for 2 days after everything exploded. The office drama had gone nuclear. HR launched an internal investigation, and I heard from one of his co-workers, who still follow me on Instagram, that he was on a forced leave of absence. Tessa ghosted me. Good. I didn't need closure from someone who thought I was a stepping stone to a sugar daddy. But my mom, she still hadn't said anything. I was starting to wonder if she even saw the files I sent. I had emailed her, texted her, even dropped off a USB at her yoga studio anonymously. Radio silence. Then, 3 days later, she called. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I'd like to meet. Just you and me. I agreed, and we met at a small cafe far from town. She was dressed in her usual perfect, wealthy suburban housewife uniform. Pearls, cardigan, soft perfume. Her eyes were glassy, but her voice was steel. I saw everything, she said, and I want a divorce. I nodded. He deserves it. She held up a hand. No, I'm not divorcing him because of the affair. I blinked. What? She leaned in. I've known about his affairs for years. This one just confirmed he hasn't changed. But I was willing to stay for the money. For you. That hit me harder than anything so far. You stay with him for me? She smiled bitterly. For what I could get for you. If I left too early, he would have buried us both legally. But now he's weak, embarrassed. I'll get everything. I didn't know whether to be impressed or disgusted. And you did well, she added, sipping her tea. You struck at the right moment. Your father's reputation is done. That helps me a lot. It was like talking to a mob boss in pearls. But she wasn't done. I have one condition. I raised an eyebrow. You don't tell anyone I knew. Ever. You play the heartbroken son. You stay quiet while I finish this. If you do, I'll make sure you get something far more valuable than revenge. She slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a single photo, a deed to a property, a massive one. You've always wanted independence, she said. Well, here's your future. Clean, untouched, and away from both of us. I left the cafe stunned. I had planned to ruin both of them. But it turned out she had been waiting for the right explosion. And I had just lit the match for her. I thought that was it. End of the road. But the next morning, I got a call from a blocked number. Hello. The voice was deep, raspy, unfamiliar. If you think you're walking away clean, it said, you're mistaken. I saw the files you sent. I saw everything. You think your father's the only one with secrets? Click. I stared at the phone, heart racing. Who the hell was that? That cryptic call shook me more than I wanted to admit. For hours, I tried to place the voice, racking my brain for who could have known about my plan, who would care enough to threaten me. Then I realized something chilling. My dad wasn't the only one who used the office as a playground. In fact, he had mentors, powerful executives above him, the ones who taught him how to keep things quiet. If they had seen those files, maybe I had hit more than one nerve. That night, I went home and found my apartment door slightly ajar. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but I pushed it open. Inside, nothing was stolen. Nothing looked broken, but someone had been there. A USB drive sat on my coffee table, labeled with a post-it that said, "Since you like secrets." My hands trembled as I plugged it in. It was a folder, hundreds of photos, documents, videos, not of my father, but of mine and dozens of other employees at parties I didn't know existed. With women, with men, with drugs. Some of the people in those pictures were major players in the city, judges, politicians, business owners. And buried in that folder, a picture of me from when I was younger, maybe 16. I was at a company event with my dad, standing in the background. Just a kid, but the implication was clear. I'd been there, whether I knew it or not. A single message file accompanied the data. You're in this too. Stay quiet, or everything burns, including you. I felt sick. This wasn't about family anymore. I had stepped into a world I didn't understand. The corruption went far beyond an affair. My dad was just one thread in a massive web of power and blackmail. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called my mom and told her to back off the divorce. I told her we had to disappear for a while. She didn't ask questions. She just said, I'll pack. Now, months later, I live in a small coastal town, far from the city, using a different name. My mom wired me enough money to stay quiet, and she's vanished into the legal shadows. As for my dad, he took the fall for everything. Publicly, lost his job, his money, his name. But he never spoke a word about the others. Just like they expected. I used to think revenge was simple, an act of justice. But now I know. When you pull the wrong string, you don't just unravel a sweater. You expose the whole damn machine, and it watches you back. Hey, guys, I hope you liked the video. Let me know your opinions in the comments, and of course, subscribe for more.